Imagine that you wanted to help a home seller or home buyer, and you go to a county website to search for that property, and you are expecting to get something really clean. But the reality is that is not completely clean. It's not that because it's broken, but because it built an index the way that is not going to help you completely.
Now, this gap happens to every one of us, right? We're real estate agents, and most people don't understand that if you're not pulling all the deeds, you might actually hurt that deal. So we're going to talk about how Claude Code can make this process just a little easier, especially with the confusing property website searches. And it's not a script. It's not about talking after a fact. This is a real skill. We're going to talk about how we built this skill, and we're going to talk about all the decisions we made while making this skill. So if you're an agent,
if you're an agent that basically looking tired of every transaction starting from a blank page, or an agent who basically wants to walk into the listing already more than what the seller told you over the phone or in a small conversation, this is the video for you, because we're going to walk you through that how you can make it automated with Claude Code.
So maybe you're an agent who has 6 to 8 deals a year and you want to grow, or maybe you're the agent who's built your entire business on trust and you need to be the one to grow, and you don't want some tech person to come up and just ruin everything. So all those things happen to where you stay top of mind, and we're really going to get into how you can build this skill, and it's actually very easy. I picked one out of many skills you could have. I just thought pulling up deeds and pulling up restrictions on deeds was something that we all have to do. So I just tried to give a really simple example of that.
Exactly. Therefore, today let's start with how this actually get it built, because wipe coding, because me and my wife, we are not a coder, and we are not claiming to be a software engineer or computer science person. And basically we're talking about wipe coding. It gets and help you to basically, with the simple language of the conversational, you can get the point that you want to solve some of the issue in real estate and get in front of more clients.
And I think a lot of people get this wrong with Claude Code or even Codex. You hear the word code and you just don't touch it. Where that is actually the wrong thing to do, because really you can go to it, speak to it in broken English, speak to it messy English, speaking it to its spell checks. I have a lot of spelling errors when I talk to this thing. But really, and it's before you ever go see a buyer or a seller, just pulling those deeds and pulling up any deed restrictions, and it really does matter. And the first time I ever did it, it missed a lot, so we really had to refine how to pull this up by going through a process and having it make a few mistakes, so we could really refine and have an amazing skill that I can pull up again and again and again like clockwork.
And basically we wanted to help you to basically skip those generic first draft that you get, because as my wife said, she went to different hoops and back and forth to make sure everything goes on a way that she wanted.
So basically what you're going to do, the mechanics of it plainly, the first skill is a text file. Basically it can be it's typically Claude likes to save it as an MD file. And this is really a really simple file after you've written it out and you say, hey, show me the skill file in plain English, so we understand how we're going to pull this skill up later, and what the description is, because it's really important to understand how it's explaining after you talk to messy English, how it's summarizing for you. Then after that once you get a slash whatever, that is now the trigger request. So now you can pull those deeds over and over again. Now, if you're writing it too vague, it's never really going to work. And if you don't have a way to call it back, again, never going to work, because you need the system to recognize what you're doing. And that's what we're going to really focus on. So really the single headline in one line is really the most important thing. It's the title and what it's going to do when it runs, and it's that // so you know what that is.
Exactly.
Do you want to keep going?
And basically after that, you come into a section that they called fixed roles, and the things that you are true on every single run that you want Claude to do for you, with no exception, and the way that you want it to be canned.
Right, so for us, Pitt County website, because that's our county, so you have to pull into that website itself, so we're looking at the county deeds. Really simple, whatever you're with, that's one of the rules. We're going here. It's a numbered section, so a full draft. Step, what is the step? What are the rules? You have to go to this. You can't just go to any, you're not going to a different state, you're not pulling up different counties. We're pulling up very specific things. Step 2 is then I'm going to have 2 halves. It's the actions and the check. So once you have your rules, we go here. Now we're going to have it pull a record. Right, so it's an action, pull the record. And if it's come back with 000, it's clearly not correct, because every deed has a number. They're not all 000. So you want to make sure you're getting something correctly for this house. And I would practice with parcel. Maybe you're going to look up 123 Main Street in your area and really figure out how it's going to pull that record. The second half is what?
The second half is the part that keeps a skill honest instead of just being fast. And then what happens?
Then the gotcha section. So really, here's the part that you have to really kind of pay attention to. The scar tissue. It's not just pulling up the newest deed. You need it to pull up a report on that home fully, including all the restrictions that might have on that home in the deed record. So if it's pulling up completely clean, there's probably a problem unless you live in a brand new area, because our area has been listed in 400 years. So there's got to be a record search. Now, when you're in the chat window and you're going through your day, and if it's pulling up 0, that means that we have to have a fix. There's a fix to going on, because you really needed to be able to go through all of the history that's online and find what it needs to find about these deeds. Now you want to run it, and you want to run it again, and really making sure you run it 3 or 4 times when you're first setting up the skill to make sure that it is starting to pull these deeds correctly, because you want to pull up the deeds so you know what they are, or the plot maps, or the pat maps, or whatever's in the records online.
And then after you did that 3 couple cycles and loop, then once the skill works the way that you need it to be at that point, there's one more small files that sits next to it and is a plugin manifest. For example, like a name, description, the version, and the license number. So
basically, that's if you need it, because again, this is just PDFs that I'm pulling up in my county. Maybe yours is different. So basically, you're taking a loose text, what you want. You want to be able to pull up the deeds, and you want to make it into an action unit that's doing. And it's going to run and reinstall on your system every single time. So it's not something that stops whenever you're not working on it. It's a skill that's going to continue to work for you. You have a new listing, 123 Main Street, 456 Elm Street, whatever it is, it can now pull up all this information for you. And it's being done quicker and faster than before. So basically, I don't know about you, but our online search was created probably somewhere in the 90s. The website is a lot of PDFs. There's some older neighborhoods. Their covenants might be mixed up. They might have older ones. They might have newer ones. And they're not necessarily easy to find, like really. So you really know how that search works. So once you have programmed Cloud to do that heavy searching for you, it becomes easier over time.
And then one thing that you need to pay attention, that when the search comes back, for example, empty, that is not the same thing as a no restriction. It means the search didn't reach that far back. As when my wife said, you need to go back and forth and make sure that doesn't come empty, because that's not true. We know that.
So once you have the civics block of rules, and once you're starting to make sure that it's understanding your system of pulling deeds, and every record deed is a little different, making sure you can pull up covenants in the area, making sure that if they are old covenants or about race or religion, of course those are invalid, but making sure it can pull up new ones that might have been filed but not necessarily listed on anybody's deed. So if it's not enforceable, then that's easy, that's historical. Now, if it was newer, but they kind of wrote it somewhere else and it's not connected to anybody's deed, you still have to be able to find that. So you have to know about the neighborhood, the subdivision, and all of that information when you're pulling up all of these deed records. And you should be able to do it with a click of your finger, and that's what really Cloud is amazing with.
Exactly. Therefore, basically you have to know it, and you have to put it there yourself. There, as my wife said, if you didn't find it, you need to search with Cloud where it is, and you can put it there where the file you're trying to put all the files together.
So I'm going to give you a couple words that I said already, but I'm just going to put them as a list for you. If you're making this like pulling up the deeds, it's not just deed. Legal descriptions are important. Original covenants are important. So you can go backwards in time, so you can really pull up if you're talking to the right person. But also being able to have it pull up the amendments, the plot maps, anything that might be in that record office, restatements, updates, anything recorded, anything filed later that might not be with the deeds.
Or if they have a septic system, pull the permit.
Well, that's a different system. You're in a different system. That's not the deed system. Exactly. That's a different system that I have connected. But he went to a different one. But understanding how the deeds and the deed office and the property office really works is understanding the restrictions that matter too. So basically, by creating your skill, and I just said we're going to give you one skill, because if you create your own skill based on your neighborhood, you're going to be one step ahead of a lot of real estate agents who still are going to go through that manual listing, or they never looked up the deed at all, which means that could be making a huge legal mistake for their clients.
Exactly. Therefore, the third trap that we wanted to
with
avoid that is liens and judgment. And those attached to the owner's name, not the property legal description. So it's completely different search on a completely different index.
So again, if your deed office holds a lot of these like liens and judgments and maybe even like they're foreclosures, because I know one county has that and one of mine does, though my main one doesn't, but surrounding ones do. You need to have a skill that can read that registry of deeds, sweep it so it's getting all of this information and not just running a basic title search, but it's really getting you everything you might need for your client to make the best offer, for your clients, the sellers, to make the best informed decision, because you're pulling up all this legal information for them. And that's really the difference between the checked and found nothing versus checked and having a skill that really checks everything, that can give you everything every single time. And silence is not always the answer. Exactly. And then there's one more piece of pulling it up.
And then there is the piece that everybody is interested, the HOA pieces. And there is where the field everybody trusts on the listing becomes a starting point instead of being an answer. And it depends from state to state, no? And
county to county, and subdivision by division. Because dues can go stale. Management companies can get replaced or folded, and somebody else new is in charge. Maybe there is none right now. But if there is a mandatory association, it's not there by mistake. And we have to be able to tell it to our clients, either as sellers or as buyers, because really, even they're saying they don't have an HOA, but they kind of do because it was set up, and it's just maybe it's not active right now, but it's never been pulled away. That is something that they really need to know, because you can't give that kind of legal information wrong. So just having a skill that can search the database how you would search the database really makes you already ahead of the game, because now you're no longer required. If you didn't know how to search the database accurately, well, now's your chance to really learn, so you can actually teach Cloud how to do it, so you never have to learn that again. So you can all learn together if you need to.
Exactly. And then again, occupancy restriction is specifically basically can live in either place, no, for
right.
the occupancy.
That has to, how many people can live in this house? Does it have to be owner occupant? That is another one of these deed restrictions that can be there, that maybe your client is a renter and they need to know that. So you have to look at the house, what's happening around the house, not just that specific deed. And basically other things that might not be in the property thing, but just a couple other things. You might want to look at the transportation projects in the area, the rezoning, the planning board, whatever, like my husband said, the septic system. All of these are systems that you can have in place, or when you're pulling up a listing, or you want to write an offer, you're pulling up all of this information for you. So you're resurfacing and getting information for your clients, because that is really what we're supposed to be doing anyway. So basically, in plain English, you're having something that you're doing already. You're pulling up this information routinely anyway. If you weren't, now you will. And then you're just really creating a skill to where it's pulling it up for you. So now you have all of that information going to your email, going to a text messages if you wanted to, going through Cloud itself, putting it as a Word document, or putting all the documents in a file. However you want it delivered to you, that's also what you tell the skill, because you are going to get it how you want it to get it. Now, many other counties have a lot of public data for free. You don't need a key, you don't need a login, you don't need an IP API, you don't need to be a vendor. So it just depends on your area, of course, 100%, but coverage is uneven, and every county runs their system the way they run their system. And what might work for you might not work for somebody in a different county. So that's why I'm saying you know your system. So when you program your skill, this is not something you can have, I'm just going to buy a skill and someone else can just set it up for me, because maybe you're in Texas, and maybe you're in New Hampshire, and maybe you're in California, maybe you're in North Dakota, or all of these places, and it runs completely differently. So having a skill that works for you in your county is really kind of be the very last step. And then this is the way you can tell your buyers and sellers.
Exactly. And then we talk about the very last step.
Yes.
Exactly. And then
and none of this replaced. You're not an attorney. We're not telling you you're going to do the title work, but we're walking in pre-planned and pre-knowledge, right? That's kind of the key. And you don't want to go to somebody who's, I saw a website the other day, and this, the 147 thing, I'll say, I saw this website yesterday. They were selling 147 skills for cloud. I don't recommend you just buy someone's $49.99 package, because in that $49.99 package is going to be very general stuff, and it's not going to build up a system that you need in your area, because you are the expert in your area. And so it's that $49 a month might sound, $47 one time might sound great, but it's not going to get you what the power of cloud can do by making it easier for you and your life.
Exactly. Therefore, is there anything else that we wanted to add?
Understanding that this is just one of the many skills. It is a capability of cloud. This is why it's much better than chat, because you're teaching it a repeated process. And you can do this with anything: lead generation, property listing descriptions, client communications, market research, outlink, deal management, your price analysts, anything you can think of that we do as real estate agents, you can do. I just gave one example of something that is kind of probably going to be what a local agent might do, like you and I, because we need to pull up these deeds sometimes.
Exactly.
Or all the time.
Therefore, I wanted to mention, as my wife said about that deal, $49, you need to remember that if you buy one of those subscription never going to end. Therefore, the best thing is you put the time, make sure that you build that skills and automation that fits exactly your need and your market. And the whole point is you get to the point that you automate everything and you cut those costs that you were paying to this company, to that company, to billions of them. And then make sure you have the system in place that helps you with your budget and also with your visibility.
So if you want to see one of the skills that I've built for myself, you can pull up my listing description. I have a GitHub. It's in the list. It's in the description below. It's free. You can see how my basic skill. It might not be how you write, and that's okay too. But just see, you can see how in a folder how I have a skill that cloud can run for me every single time. And that's just a simple one.
We are Alan Victoria Pinder, eXp Realty Icon Agent, and we are here to help you level up your